Force damage is one of the best types of damage you can do because it's so rarely resisted or immune. So in this video, we're going over some of the best spells in the game that can technically deal force damage. Starting us off at number 10, we have Reality Break. This is an 8th level concentration spell with a 1-minute duration and a 60-foot range. What it does is, on a failed wisdom save, the target cannot take reactions, and at the start of each of its turns, it must roll a d10 and suffers an effect from the Reality Break table based on what they rolled. At first glance, this spell doesn't seem all that powerful for an 8th level spell. It only hits a single target and the effects it has are random, which can be detrimental at higher levels where you typically encounter creatures with better resistances. While having an 80% chance to deal either force or psychic damage is definitely nice, you also have a 20% chance to roll cold damage, which is the most resisted type of damage. Although being able to blind a target is still excellent even if they aren't taking damage. There is also a caveat to using this spell that other spells don't have. You see, this spell was included in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount along with a few other spells which were designed exclusively for the 2 wizard subclasses that were added with the book, Graviturgy and Chronergy. This means that before you can take this spell, you need to check with your DM before you can take the spell. And also, you do need to keep in mind that Wildmount is a setting, which means that if you're playing any of the mainline adventures like Court of the Dragon Queen or Rime of the Frost Maiden, along with any other sets in Faerun, none of the spells in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount technically exist there, nor do their subclasses. Now, this isn't usually a problem, it's just something to be aware of when asking your DM if you can use the materials for other settings. While Reality Break deals decent damage given its level, the biggest hindrance to it taking a higher spot on this list is that it's a wizard-specific spell, and an 8th level spell at that, meaning you need to be level 15 before you can even access it. And on top of that, you need your DM's approval, which really limits your ability to access it. Also, this is a save or suck spell, where if the target succeeds the initial wisdom save, they take no damage at all, as you only ever get one 8th level spell slot even at 20th level. Using your single 8th level spell slot for the day and having nothing come of it is a really bad feeling. And at number 9, we have Steel Wind Strike. This is a 5th level spell with a range of 30 feet that allows you to choose up to 5 creatures within range, as you can see, and roll a melee spell attack against each one, dealing 6d10 force damage on hit. Additionally, you can teleport to an occupied space you can see within 5 feet of one of the targets regardless of if you hit them or not. This spell has the potential to deal an absurd amount of overall damage, as if you hit all 5 targets, the spell deals 165 damage on average. Meaning, at its spell level, it's only being out by Fireball upcast at 5th level when dealing damage to 5 targets, as that would deal around 175 damage on average. The reason the damage output of the spell is so good is because it's meant to be a capstone spell for rangers, who are half-casters, meaning they can only learn up to 5th level spells. This makes sense considering some rangers are built for melee combat, and this spell gives them an excellent source of force damage. But the spell is also on the wizard spell list, and for them, this is a less than ideal spell most of the time. You see, wizards have the lowest hit die in the game at d6, meaning they are really quite squishy, which leads them to naturally want to be as far away from a fight as possible. And they accomplish this thanks to spells mostly having between 60 and 120 foot ranges. This spell, on the other hand, has a 30 foot range, which means they have to be right up in the thick of fighting. Now, there are wizards who do use melee weapons, specifically blade singers, and for them, this might be a decent option. But most wizards will still want to steer clear of this spell in favor of something like an upcasted fireball. After all, if there is only one thing that a wizard should know, it's that fireball solves all of your problems. So while the damage is decent due to limitations making this spell specifically for melee casters, this takes a lower spot on this list. And for number 8, we have Tensor's Transformation, a 6th level concentration spell that lasts for up to 10 minutes, during which you cannot cast spells. This transformation has a whole host of effects, but to sum it up, you become a full-fledged martial character for the duration. This spell is exclusive to the wizard spell list, but you can get it with the Arcane Cleric subclass. For Bladesinger wizards, this spell works really well with their 14th level ability, Song of Victory, which allows you to add your intelligence modifier to melee weapon attacks while your Blade Song feature is active. And then on top of that, you're dealing an extra 2d12 force damage to all your attacks thanks to the spell. And because you gain proficiency in Constitution saving throws, maintaining concentration with this spell is made a little easier since after taking damage, you are required to make a Constitution save to see if you keep your concentration. This holds especially true for Bladesinger wizards because Blade Song also lets you add your intelligence modifier when making a save to hold concentration. Then if you also take the Warcaster feat, you have advantage when rolling to keep concentration as well, which makes it nigh impossible for you to lose concentration. Now, while it is fun to cast a spell and prove to marshals in your party that you're just as good at them at their job as you are at your own, this spell suffers from the same issues as the previous spot on this list, in that it's hard to obtain and it's exclusive to the wizard spell list. Still, it does beat out Steel Wind Strike because it actually lets you become a marshal, for a full 10 minutes at that, rather than Steel Wind Strike, which only lets you spend a single turn being a marshal and also probably leaving really vulnerable. The biggest downside of this spell, however, is that when the spell ends, you have to make a DC 15 Constitution save, or suffer 1 level of exhaustion. Now, while you do get a chance to avoid this with a saving throw, a DC 15 is not an easy number to beat, and if this happens to be in the middle of combat, you're going to have a bit of a rough time. Still, if you do want to use this spell, I'd recommend having a party member who has the resistance cantrip be on standby to cast it on you before you drop concentration on the spell, assuming you're able to drop it after combat once you don't have people attacking you anymore. This spell also does have a casting time of 1 action, meaning that your first round of combat would be spent casting it instead of actually attacking. So with all of that added together, while this can be a fun spell, it takes another lower spot on this list. And at number 7, we have Jim's Magic Missiles. This is a first level spell with a range of 120 feet and requires a royalty fee of 1 gold piece in order to cast. It fires 3 magical darts which require attack rolls for each of them in order to deal 2d4 force damage upon hitting its targets. Also, whenever you roll a critical strike, the target takes 5d4 force damage instead of 4d4. However, if you roll a 1 on any of the attack rolls, then all of the darts will miss and backfire, dealing 1 force damage per dart to you instead. This spell differs from its iconic cousin, Magic Missile, in a couple of ways. First, it's no longer guaranteed to deal damage to your opponent because it now relies on you making attack rolls in order to hit your targets. Second, there's a chance for each missile to critically hit for better damage, with the unfortunate downside of it potentially backfiring on a critical failure. Overall, however, this spell deals more damage on average than Magic Missile, and since Jim's Magic Missile technically does not count as the actual spell Magic Missile, your opponent can't use the shield spell to completely block the darts unless, of course, the shield spell would make the creature's AC higher than your attack rolls. The main reason people often do not take this spell is less about the chance that it will blow up in their face and more about the price. Each time you cast it, it costs 1 gold piece, which, while not much by itself, can very quickly add up. Upcasting this spell also increases the amount you need to pay in order to use it, making it less than ideal. The damage potential of this spell is pretty good though, so if money's no object, it's not a bad tool to have in your back pocket. But due to the hefty price, it remains down here at the number 7 spot on the list. And at number 6, we have Draconic Transformation, a 7th level concentration spell that you can cast using your bonus action, which gives you draconic features and grants you a number of benefits for up to 1 minute. First, you gain 30 feet of blind sight even if you are blinded or in darkness, so long as the creature isn't behind full cover. With this sight, you can even see invisible creatures. Second, you gain a breath weapon, which you can use as a bonus action, dealing 68 force damage in a 60-foot cone to creatures that fail a dexterity save, or half as much on a success. Finally, you get wings that give you 60 feet of fly speed. Now, all of these effects are fantastic, as well they should be, as this is a 7th level spell slot you're using. Still, the main reason to cast this is for that bonus action breath weapon, as it allows you to deal an extra 68 damage each turn in addition to using your action to cast a spell or whatever else you typically do with it. The reason this spell only makes this number 6 spot on this list is because there are just too many fantastic 7th level spells that are more impactful than just dealing some extra damage with a bonus action. Spells like Force Cage, Crown of Stars, and Simulacrum are fantastic spells that are on the same power level as many 9th level spells, while Draconic Transformation just isn't quite there. There are also some lower level spells which require concentration but can give more value per cast, such as Hypnotic Pattern, which is a 3rd level spell and can completely turn a battle around in your party's favor. However, this is the closest you can get to transform into an actual dragon on demand, outside of something like a Potion of Dragon's Majesty, or a True Polymorph, which probably makes Draconic Transformation one of the cooler spells on this list. And at number 5, we have Bigby's Hand, a 5th level concentration spell that basically lets you summon a large size hand for up to 1 minute. On each of your subsequent turns, you can spend a bonus action to do a number of things with it, such as punching a creature for 48 force damage, pushing a creature a number of feet, grabbing a creature, grappling them and dealing 2d6 plus your spellcasting modifier's bludgeoning damage, or you can have it interpose itself, giving you half cover from the creature and possibly giving you some area denial as the hand has a strength score of 26, and the creature cannot move through the hand space unless their strength score is higher than the hand's, and even then the hand is considered difficult terrain. The hand has an AC of 20 and hit points equal to your maximum hit points. As I just mentioned, it has a strength score of 26, a dexterity score of 10, and you can move it up to 60 feet when selecting an effect to use. This is a situational spell, but can be a really great thing to have when needed. For example, if you and your party ever find yourself trapped inside a cave-in, you can use the hand's tremendous strength to help you break out of it. Or if you need to transport something extremely heavy and large for a short distance, Bigby's Hand would have no trouble doing so. With a strength score of 26, it can lift up to 840 pounds. Combat-wise, you might find yourself wanting to keep a particularly strong creature grounded or unable to advance, so you use Grasping's Hand's ability to grapple it in order to reduce its speed to 0. The nice things about this spell is that it only needs to succeed the grapple check once in order to benefit from the full effects of Grasping Hand, since the creature no longer makes subsequent strength checks once grappled. The damage components of this spell also scale really well in comparison to other spells, increasing the force and bludgeoning damage by 2d8 and 2d6 respectively when upcasting it. What keeps this spell from being any higher on this list is the fact that, unlike the next 4 spells on this list, Bigby's hand relies a lot on what you're fighting in order for it to be useful, even more so than the previous entries on this list. However, this spell does have a lot more use cases outside of combat than the spells covered so far. It's just a more niche pick that will likely not see daily use. This is just one of those spells that is useful to have in your back pocket for a rainy day, but most days it will remain in the pocket rather than getting pulled out. And at number 4, we have Disintegrate. This is a 6th level spell which forces the creature to make a dexterity saving throw to avoid taking a massive 10d6 plus 40 force damage. In addition, if this damage reduces the target's hit points to 0, then they and everything they're wearing that isn't magical is turned to dust, and that creature cannot be brought back to life without using a wish spell or true resurrection. Any non-magical objects or creations of magical forces that are large or smaller can also be completely disintegrated with this spell, and anything huge or larger has a 10-foot cube of itself disintegrated. The damage of this spell is incredible when compared to other single target spells. It deals a minimum of 50 force damage to your target and 75 damage on average, making it the second highest damaging single target spell until 9th level. The damage scaling of this spell also increases by 3d6 for each spell slot above 6th level, which makes it a decent spell for upcasting. There's just not a lot to say about this spell, honestly. It just deals good damage. The biggest downside is the fact that if the target succeeds a dexterity saving throw, then they take no damage. So it is a gamble, since a lot of high level creatures tend to have pretty decent dexterity saves. While this spell does a lot of force damage, it doesn't quite make it into the top 3 due to it being a save or suck spell. If your target makes a save, then you just wasted your spell slot, and wasting a 6th level spell slot hurts really bad. And at number 3, we have Eldritch Blast. This is a cantrip which is normally only available to warlocks, which fires a beam of energy with a range of 120 feet that deals 1d10 force damage to each target. The number of beams scales like any other cantrip. You get 2 beams at level 5, 3 beams at level 11, and 4 beams at level 15. This spell is the bread and butter for many warlock players because they can modify the spell in a plethora of ways with their 2nd level feature, Eldritch Invocations, which gives them a number of options, like adding your charisma modifier to the damage of each beam, increasing the spell's range to 300 feet, or even knocking back the target hit, as well as a number of other effects. Thanks to Eldritch Invocations, this is by far the most flexible cantrip in the game and possesses both a high damage and great range. Even though this spell is only available to warlocks, there's nothing stopping other classes from taking this spell by either taking a single level in warlock, which comes with the benefits of a warlock subclass to boot, or taking the magic initiate feat and picking the spell through that. This spell takes number 3 spot on this list as it's an all-around good spell. You can pick it up in character creation and it will most certainly be used all the way up to level 20. The first video made on this channel was the top 10 best cantrips in D&D, so if you want to know more about this spell, you should go check out that video. But suffice to say, this is a solid spell and easily makes it into the top 3 on this list. And at number 2, we have perhaps the most iconic spell in all of D&D, Magic Missile. This is a 1st level spell with a range of 120 feet that shoots 3 darts to up to 3 creatures which you can see within range, each dart dealing a guaranteed 1d4 plus 1 force damage. Upcasting this spell shoots 1 more dart for each slot above 1st level. It doesn't require the caster to roll any dice to hit and will always deal damage unless the target casts a shield spell or has a Brooch of Shielding, both of which have the effects of completely negating the spell specifically. At lower levels where your gear and stats might not be where you want them to be just yet, being able to have the option to deal damage no matter what is invaluable for any character. And because it's not tied to any specific ability score, this makes it an excellent option for the Magic Initiate feat. Another way to gain access to this spell is through the uncommon magic item Wand of Magic Missiles. This wand has 7 charges, and you can use an action to expend 1 or more of its charges to cast Magic Missile from it. For 1 charge, you can cast the 1st level version of the spell, but you can increase the spell slot by 1 level for each additional charge you expend. But be mindful, as while the wand does regain 1d6 plus 1 charges each day, if you expend the last charge, there is a chance the wand will be destroyed. The reason Magic Missile sits number 2 spot is because it is very useful, and you can get it in many different ways rather easily. But it can fall off a bit later on, unless you use that crazy machine gun magic missile build that I've seen floating around, but that's a topic for a different video. And the number 1 spell that deals force damage is Spiritual Weapon. This is a 2nd level, non-concentration spell that lasts for 1 minute and has a range of 60 feet, and can be cast as a bonus action. When you cast this spell, you get to make a melee spell attack against a creature that is adjacent to you when you summon the weapon, and on hit, the target takes 1d8 plus your spell modifier's force damage. Then, for the duration of the spell, you can use your bonus action to move the weapon up to 20 feet and have it attack a creature in melee. This spell is exclusive to the Cleric spell list, though you can get it as a Conquest Paladin and Divine Soul Sorcerer. This is a really solid spell. Sure, the damage isn't the highest when looking at other spells in this list, but it is only a 2nd level spell, and it doesn't require concentration, which is really rare for a spell like this that has duration and deals damage on each turn. You basically have an extra attack each round for 1 minute, and being able to deal force damage with its attacks means nothing can really resist it. This also allows a lot of flexibility in regards to your action economy, which is extremely important in D&D because the more action economy you have, the more things you're able to do in a given turn. So being able to heal a wounded ally with Cure Wounds, while still being able to deal damage with your spiritual weapon is excellent. Or you can maximize your damage by also using the 3rd level spell Spirit Guardians on the turn before or after casting Spiritual Weapon. The biggest downside to this spell is the fact that it scales really poorly in comparison to other spells, only increasing its damage die for every other spell level that it's upcasted. Meaning it doesn't get stronger until you cast it as a 4th level spell, and this is quite rare as most spells that increase in damage when upcast do so by 1 damage die every level. However, even this is only a small price to pay considering everything Spiritual Weapon can do. And while this spell is only available to Clerics, Conquest Paladins, and Divine Soul Sorcerers, this is one of those rare cases where having a spell restricted to very few classes is actually a good thing. Because if Wizards or Warlocks ever gain access to this spell, it would be broken and everybody would end up picking it. Unlike Reality Break, where it only really combos with the class that it's restricted to. Alright, and there you have it. The best 4 spells in the game. Did I miss any spells that you think should have made the list, or do you have any ideas for future videos just like this one? If so, I'd love to hear about those things down in the comments below.